I want to hear from you, like content wise, what content are you putting out that's actually getting business? Because I always talk to agents that are like, okay, I'm putting out all this content, I'm doing all this stuff. But the reality is sometimes that content doesn't actually get us business. I mean, with the YouTube channel, we're crushing making money off YouTube. Yet I see people doing on Instagram and all this other stuff, not making money off of those things. So what are you doing in your business that's really crushing, like content wise, that somebody else should jump in and try doing?
I think that the most under kind of like utilized arbitrage of that real estate agents are missing out on is agent to agent kind of like centric content. It's something that I didn't necessarily like get into that content game thinking that that was going to be like a revenue source for me. And so what happened about 2 or 3 years ago is I started to grow my agent following. I did this giveaway, this partnership with the broke agent where I gave away some of his books that he wrote. And then I got like 1,000 followers in one day, but they were all real estate agents. And so like, then I started noticing that the real estate agent content that I was putting out, like my, I did a behind the scenes where I showed how to do a video CMA. It's like the CMA, but show your screen and like this thing. And I got hundreds of DMs that were like, this is amazing, da, 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 from other agents. And so what happened when I started growing the agent to agent following was I started getting referrals. And it's so funny because like, I never necessarily sought out to do that. But over the last 2 or 3 years, my business has been predominantly agent to agent referrals from Mark in Boise, someone I've never met before, but they follow me on Instagram. And so that was probably the coolest thing with the content that I started putting out, where there was more of an agent-centric focus on it. And then I started to get agent-to-agent referrals from it. And I thought that was pretty rad.
So are you doing just Instagram or TikTok? Which one's your go-to?
Instagram's been my go-to for 10 years. I started in this business in 2012, 10 years ago. And that was right about the time that Instagram started kind of taking off as well. 2012, I think that's when they got bought by Facebook for $1 billion. And they started kind of just like growing as their own kind of entity. And so it was always really natural for me to post on Instagram. And what I really loved is when they actually dived in and did stories, because it allowed us to kind of micro content. At that time, I was doing some Snapchat too, but Instagram stories really changed the game because it, in the old Gary Vee-ism, it allows you to document, not create. And so like theoretically creating content's hard. We talk about that all the time, like in our mastermind groups and stuff like that. We even just talked about it before this call, batch contenting and stuff like that. But documenting what you're doing on a daily basis is easy, and it's free and you're already doing it. And you can be so much more raw and unpolished with your documentation of what you're doing. You know what I mean? So like even here, while before the end of this call, I'm going to do a quick little pan, like you may not even notice it, but I'm going to do a quick little pan showing that I'm doing this call with you. And that'll go on my Instagram stories. And so Instagram stories, there's going to be multiple posts a day, but it's because they're 15 seconds or less and you can do it raw, but it's showing kind of subconsciously that like, hey, I'm here in real estate, I'm working, I'm doing stuff without actually like braggadociously saying it like on your feed. And then when it comes to like the feed content, I try to do, we were just talking about that. I try to batch content and do at least 1 or 2 videos released a week. But ultimately, like sometimes that'll range anywhere from once a week up to 3 times a week, depending on what it is. And now you can see, I see you're scrolling. You can range anywhere from live videos to I've started to lean into the green screen videos a little bit. Those seem to perform really well. And then as you go down, you'll see some of those educational videos, which are like how to price your home in this market, or how much does it actually cost to sell a home. Some of those 60-second market update, right? Those are all professionally shot videos that I did specifically for Instagram in a vertical aspect ratio. And so obviously those always do really well.
So you're doing a good mix between like just you on your phone doing little lives, and then a good mix between like curated content where you're sitting down doing it in front of a person. When you're hiring a videographer, I think this is what a lot of people have questions about, right? It is the videographer, because you see people like you just crushing it, and you're able to actually leverage and do more business just by spending the money on a videographer. So what's that cost look like for you when hiring a videographer, and how many videos do they put out for you?
Good question. So the videographer, I always say the average videographer video is going to be somewhere around $200, and that could drop as low as 100 or 150, depending on, if you're getting them in bulk or something along those lines. But and when I say that, I mean like the sitting down 60 seconds to 90 seconds in a controlled environment, where that's very easy for a videographer to shoot. They set up on a tripod, and it's very easy to edit. Plus, usually when I'm talking, it's just talking straight through. There's not a lot of cuts. So it's very easy for them to edit even. So those are going to be really cheap videos, right? But if you were to get out into like a neighborhood spotlight or something where you're walking around Otay Ranch and you're just like looking at all the houses, that's a much tougher video to shoot because now you're out in the elements. There's sound issues, there's lighting issues and stuff like that. So it could start to get a little bit more expensive. But like for us, we actually, funny enough, we started a video marketing company on the side, ancillary, called Studio. And so what we do is we help shoot, we help real estate.
Did you just say ancillary or an auxiliary?
Ancillary.
Okay. I was
Yeah.
like, Tulare, California is a little far from you, but okay.
No. So we started an ancillary business, which is basically a side business, but it still has to do with real estate, where we help real estate agents produce better video content. And so we at Studio, we charge $1,000 for 4 videos. And we actually game plan with the clients. We sit down and we'll actually give them the scripts and then we'll shoot it for them. So that's $250 a video. But like I said, I think you can usually find it between $150 and $200 if you just want the videographer to come, set up in your office and shoot for you.
On YouTube, when I started YouTube, I was doing all of the walking around, showing everything. And then, 4 months into me being super uber consistent, that little thing came around called coronavirus. And so I was actually going out and doing like walkthroughs where I was like meeting people and like, hey, can you say these crazy Texas words? Right. And it was really funny, great content. And after that, I was like, man, nobody's watching. Nobody's going to be wanting me to throw a camera in their face right now.
Yeah.
So I bought a green screen and shot everything myself. And like, I was amazed at how much content I could actually shoot in a day versus having to drive from one spot to another. And just throw B-roll over the top of it. So
it changed the game, right? I mean, COVID changed the game a little bit to the point where we like, now look at us right now, right? How many of these have you been able to shoot where you can get someone from San Diego on and we can sit here and rap for an hour or whatever it is, thanks to Zoom or thanks to, thanks to streaming. It really did change the game. There's no excuses for content anymore.
Yeah. And I think that's, you find a lot of agents that jumped on TikTok, right during that time and kind of got famous in a time when people are just sitting in front of their homes. And those people are getting tons of views and they're getting business out of it. You have other people that, like me, that did YouTube. And so all it took was just the effort. And I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like any agent that's in the business right now at some level needs to be their own media company.
Correct. Yeah. So that was one of the original things that I learned 10 years ago. I read Gary Vee's Crush It book, which is his first book, which is funny because it's like probably outdated now. If you read it, it talks about like Tumblr and all these different things. But in there, the core concept of that book was that you're not an X, you're a media company that does X, right? So you're not a real estate agent, you're a media company that sells real estate. And so it's like a little subtle thing that switched in my life like 10 years ago. And I started to think about everything I did as a media company. What shows am I putting out? What content am I putting out? Are people consuming it? Which channels am I using to distribute them? And then from there, I basically also then parlayed that into selling real estate. But everything we do in real estate is great content too. You know what I mean? Showing these, I mean, I don't know. I mean, not everywhere, I guess, but like for the most part here in San Diego, we go show houses and there's sick ocean views or there's beautiful, you know what I mean? And so like, that's pure content right there. We can just turn the phone on and you've got content at your disposal. But even if you don't have like sick houses, if you're in, I don't know, I keep saying Boise, like shout out to Boise. I don't mean to pick on Boise, but if you're in Boise and your houses don't have ocean views, it doesn't matter. Cause like the water guy who comes into your office and changes the water, he has personality, right? So you just start documenting that stuff. You have more content than you think.
What's that soundtrack on a reel going around? Everything is content. Everything. Yeah. Every time I start to shoot something, I'm like, oh yeah, this is content worthy. I mean,